My two favorite stories about Augusta National Golf Club both come down to rules. And I think rules are really important. I'll tell you what I mean. The first story is that the chairman of Augusta National, Clifford Roberts, was famous for being a very stickler for behavior and the way that people must behave when they were at the club. And if members made mistakes, he was pretty harsh with them. In fact, in the early years, what if a member made a mistake, he would just not get a bill for the next year's dues. And when he called the club to say, hey, I didn't get my bill, the club would respond, yes, sir, only members get bills. And you're not a member. Kind of rough, right? But I heard much later and more recent, a chairman was invited to play golf with a member and his guest. And the chairman agreed, and they went out to the first tee, and the guest said, I want to play for $10,000. And the chairman, slightly taken aback, and he looks at him and says, sir, generally at our club, we play for a $20 Nassau, which means it's $5 if you win the front, $5 if you win the back, and $10 to the person who wins it all. And of course, the guest is kind of taken aback by this, but he plays along. And they get down so that they're approaching the first green, and he says, I want to play for junk, which is to say that he would make a large bet that maybe the guy who's furthest from the pin would get in the fewest number of strokes, or the longest putt, or whatever it is that he wanted to do. And the chairman says, no, sir. No, we've established a bet for this round of golf, and I think we'll continue on. And of course, again, one does not upset the chairman, so it continued. Now, after their golf, they go in to have lunch, and they're in the trophy room, and they're going to play cards. And the guest, again, gets up and says, I want to play gin. Lots of people like to play gin at golf clubs. And he says, I want to play for $100 a point. And the chairman is, again, taken aback and says, sir, at this club, we play for a penny a point. And I think a penny a point would be an appropriate bet for our game. And this time, the guest can't handle it. He stands up. He says, you told me that this was a rich club and these were rich guys, and I came here to play for real money. I want to play for real money. And the chairman smiles for a minute, and he turns to the waiter and he says, would you bring us a new deck of cards? And it's still wrapped in the plastic, and he takes the plastic off and he gives the cards to the guest and says, shuffle the cards. And he does, and shuffles them, gives them a cut, puts them down in front of the chairman. The chairman says, you want to play for real money? And the guy says, yes, I do. And the chairman says, what's your net worth? And the man says, $10 million. And the chairman says, we'll cut for $10 million. Now, I don't know what that means. I've wondered about it, and I've got several interpretations of it, but I think the concept of rules here is what's really important. I've been to a lot of really private events. I've been to a lot of really special events, and I've seen a lot of really crazy rules, right? And nobody's allowed to have a phone. Nobody's allowed to have a computer. Nobody's allowed to have a camera. Nobody's allowed to have a digital watch or something like that that could communicate information outside. Nobody's allowed to wear a hat. At our events, you must always wear a coat and tie, even though it's 110 degrees outside. What are some other crazy rules? You're not allowed to discuss business when you're at this event, right? Or when you're at that event, you're not allowed to discuss your career and what you're doing outside the event. These rules sound crazy and strict. And in a lot of cases, they're enforced in such a way where if you break that rule, you're just plain thrown out and never invited back. The question is why? And one of my older friends told me, he said, to preserve harmony. That was really interesting. He says, look, we all agree to what the rules are. You're not allowed to have a cell phone. Don't bring your cell phone. You have to wear a coat and tie, then wear a coat and tie. We've all agreed that these are what the rules are. And since we've all agreed on what the rules are, there's no reason for us to have conflict with each other. There's no reason for us to get into politics and angry debates with each other. We're all here to do the same thing. We're all working toward the same goal, and we're all preserving harmony and not doing anything that offends anyone else. It's an interesting perspective, and maybe something that you couldn't bring off at your event, or maybe something worth talking about. If you're open to a conversation, my number is 561-596-3877. You can set an appointment with me at magicmeansbusiness.com/contact. This is something interesting to think about at your events, and I hope you find it interesting as well. Have a good day.